This month on the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine, we head south from Rio to Curitiba. We board a slow train, a fast car, and take an open-top bus tour of the regional capital. And we profile one of Brazil's most progressive football clubs, Atlético Paranaense. We begin in Addis Ababa, where fans of Ethiopia and Somalia had gathered in great numbers for the second leg of their team's first-round encounter in the African qualifying zone for the 2014 FIFA World Cup. 0-0 after the first leg, which was played in Djibouti for security reasons, this match burst into life just 5 minutes in when Omod Akuri gave Ethiopia the lead. A little over 3 years after they were excluded from qualifying for the 2010 tournament following the suspension of the country's football federation, Ethiopia secured their place in the second round, thanks to 4 second-half goals, including 2 from Shimeles Bekele. Ethiopia's reward is a place in Group A in round 2, alongside South Africa, Botswana and the Central African Republic. In Amman, Jordan went into their penultimate fixture in round 3 of Asia's qualifying tournament, safe in the knowledge that they will be one of the 10 teams contesting round 4. Even so, there was no sign of complacency from the home side, and Hassan Mahmoud showed great composure to give them an early lead. Their opponents, Iraq, who are now coached by Zico, needed just a point to secure their place in the next round. They eventually drew level on 55 minutes, thanks to a smart finish from the experienced Nashat Akram. Iraq, who made their one and only World Cup appearance back in 1986, then took the lead, before some fine work from Kara Jazim enabled the impressive Akram to make it 3-1 on the night. So Iraq joined the Jordanians in Asia's final round of qualifying, as do Japan, Uzbekistan, Iran and Australia. The identity of the other 4 teams will be determined early next year. The second round of qualifying in the North, Central America and Caribbean zone reached its conclusion in November, and this is the lineup for round 3, with Cuba, the lowest-ranked nation, still in the running. The group winners and the 3 runners-up will advance to round 4. Finally, in South America, Uruguay continue to set the pace after a resounding 4-0 defeat of Chile in Montevideo. England-based striker Luis Suarez was the hero once again, scoring 2 goals in each half. Recently shortlisted for the FIFA Ballon d'Or, Suarez scored 1 with his left foot, 1 with his right, and 2 headers as he single-handedly destroyed a Chile side that won many admirers in South Africa. Whilst Uruguay remain unbeaten, Chile's second defeat leaves them in 5th place with 6 points from 4 games. It's 34 years since Peru beat Ecuador in a FIFA World Cup qualifier, but they were on level terms for 70 minutes in a hard-fought encounter in Quito. Second-half substitute Edison Mendez dashed any hopes of Peru snapping that streak, though, as he steered home his 11th goal in his 4th qualifying campaign. With time running out, Christian Benitez made it 2-0 to Ecuador, who now sit 4th in the standings, a point behind Uruguay, Venezuela and Argentina. The 2-time champions failed to beat Bolivia in November, but responded with a 2-1 win in Colombia. Welcome to Curitiba, the capital of Paraná, one of the southernmost states in Brazil. Home to almost 2 million people, a number of whom are descendants of the many European migrants that arrived here in the second half of the 19th century, Curitiba is a city with much to offer. But don't just take our word for it. Instead, allow the members of Copacabana Club, one of Curitiba's best-known bands, to show you the sights.
Hey guys, so now we're gonna jump into this bus to see the city. It's the best way to view Curitiba. Let's go.
First introduced in 1994, the Linea Turismo is a 2.5-hour bus tour that takes in 25 of Curitiba's tourist attractions. First up, Rua das Flores.
Here in Rua das Flores, there's also a place called Boca Maldita, which is kind of bloody mouth. This is where the old guys come here to talk about political stuff and what's going on.
All the politicians come here to discuss things.
Yeah.
Just to have a nice piece of gossip, you know.
Yes, it's right there. Boca Maldita.
Politics and football, no doubt. After all, this is Brazil. If they wish, passengers can hop on and off the bus up to 4 times, which allows them to explore Curitiba's 24-hour shopping street or visit the Oscar Niemeyer Museum.
Hey, now we're getting to Teatro Paiol, which is a very old theater. They just made some improvements in the theater. It's a very small arena theater for around 200 people. We would like to play there one time because it's you get very close to the audience.
Built in 1906, the building was originally used as an arms depot before being transformed into a theatre in 1971.
The architecture is very beautiful also.
Curitiba is often dubbed the ecological capital of Brazil and boasts dozens of parks and wooded areas. And the crowning glory is the city's botanic gardens.
One of the most visited spots in Curitiba for the tourists.
Opened in 1991, the Botanic Gardens is the city's most popular tourist attraction, and it's easy to see why. There are plants galore, regular exhibitions, and the best news of all, it's free to get in.
Hey, now that we show you the city, we're going to show you a little bit of our music. Copacabana Club in the studio. Let's go.
Just do it, yeah.
Formed in 2007, Copacabana Club are in the process of taking the state by storm. Just Do It is a track from their debut album Tropical Splash, which has earned rave reviews in the international music press.
Someone once wrote about Copacabana Club saying that we made indie carnival party music. And if you see our show, our concerts, I think that's the word. We like to party and we make rock and roll, but with a little bit touch of like Brazilian swing carnival style. It's nice.
Unlike a lot of Brazilian bands, Copacabana Club write and perform their songs in English. One of the reasons why they stand out, even in Curitiba, where the music scene is rather crowded.
The weather is not really nice here, you know, it's cold most of the time, so I think if it's cold, you know, it's not hot and you don't have a beach to go, so we form a band to spend your spare time, and this may be an explanation, but there should be many others.
Surprisingly, not all of the band members are football fans, but guitarist Rafael Martins certainly is. A Corinthians supporter, he's already counting down the days to June 12, 2014.
I'm excited about the World Cup because I've never been to one. It's the main event in the world, even if you don't care for football. So it's like having a great band like, let's say, The Cure or the Beatles playing in your town. You feel kind of proud because these guys that are really important are coming to your place.
Yes, world football's top teams will be heading to Curitiba. And if the band's stock continues to rise, they could be rivaling The Cure for a place on the playlists of the game's leading lights. Let's wind back the clock now to 1950, when Brazil hosted the 4th FIFA World Cup. Curitiba was chosen as one of the 6 host cities, and the Estadio Dorival Brito e Silva, which had been completed just 3 years earlier, staged 2 group fixtures, including the game between Spain and the USA.
Dorival Brito was a stadium built in a particular style. It was neoclassical architecture. As a stadium, it was adequate for the time because it could easily hold 8,000 or 9,000 people for the biggest games.
Now in his 80s and still working as a radio journalist at CBN Curitiba, Luis Giraldo Masa was just 19 when Brazil staged the tournament. And he got to see both matches in Curitiba, although he never made it inside the stadium.
There was a train yard behind the Dorival Brito, and they used to leave train carriages and other rolling stock there. We would often climb on top of them to watch the matches. I watched the 2 World Cup games from that vantage point. Sometimes it could be a bit of a drama, because they would move the trains around. That would trigger mass panic, because if the train was heading towards Paranaense, there would be tunnels to negotiate. So we had no option but to jump off.
On June 25th, a crowd approaching 10,000 was inside the stadium to see Spain defeat the United States 3-1. On paper, it appeared to be a comfortable victory, but all 3 Spanish goals were scored in an action-packed last 10 minutes. Whilst the USA would finish bottom of Group 2, Spain progressed and eventually finished 4th. 4 days later, Sweden were in Curitiba to take on Paraguay, fresh from their 3-2 victory over the defending champions, Italy.
At that particular match, the fans were supporting Paraguay. The Swedish team employed a very good marking system and played a very direct style of football. Paraguay's approach was more familiar to us, as they liked to pass the ball around.
Sweden's direct approach paid early dividends, and Masa saw them race into a 2-0 lead against their South American opponents. But back came Paraguay to the delight of the locals. Their captain, Cesar Lopez Fretes, reduced the arrears before half-time. Then, with 16 minutes remaining, Atilio Lopez lashed in a second to secure a 2-2 draw. Paraguay would fail to progress to the final round, but Sweden went on to finish 3rd. More than 60 years may have passed, but the Estadio Dorival Brito e Silva has changed little in that time. Currently home to Paraná Club of Brazil's 2nd division, it won't be utilised in 2014, when Curitiba will host 4 matches in the group stages of the 20th FIFA World Cup. Whilst most Brazilians love their football, many are also very fond of their motorsport. And in Pinhais, just outside Curitiba, Paraná's petrolheads can fuel their need for speed at one of the many race meetings that are held here annually. Down the years, more than 30 Brazilian drivers have made at least one start in Formula One. They include Ayrton Senna and Emerson Fittipaldi, both of whom were world champions, as well as Emerson's nephew, Christian, who now competes domestically in the Trofeo Linea.
Motorsport in general has been growing in popularity here in recent decades. I think that Emerson was the first person to open our eyes to it and start this trend. What he achieved for his country, as well as for himself, was very important and served as an example to many other drivers who also ended up following in his tracks.
The Trofeo Linea and its open-wheeled equivalent, Formula Futuro, attract a number of drivers with F1 ambitions. And under the banner of the Racing Festival, they're fast becoming the most talked-about disciplines in Brazilian motorsport. Engine performance and reliability are the main topics for discussion here, but the drivers do talk football from time to time, and most have an opinion on the national football team.
I think this country is a school that produces great talent, but sometimes we lack that killer instinct. Sometimes, when we're playing at the World Cup or in important matches, we maybe think too much about the style of football and not enough about the end product and scoring goals. And it's goals that make the difference.
And never did a Brazilian team epitomise those characteristics more than in 1982, when a squad brimful of talent briefly illuminated the World Cup in Spain.
It was a time when, in my humble opinion, Brazil dominated the World Cup. In the end, though, they went and lost to Italy and were eliminated from the World Cup. But in terms of pure talent, I'd say that Brazil was the best team in that tournament. But once again, they lacked the final product.
The best team may not always win the World Cup, but the best driver almost always prevails in the Trofeo Linea. The cars, which can reach speeds approaching 200 kilometers per hour, are almost identical. It's the man behind the wheel who makes all the difference. The spectators have certainly embraced the discipline, just as they will the FIFA World Cup, when football's showpiece event returns to South America for the first time in 36 years.
The World Cup is in our blood. It's part of the Brazilian passion and culture. That's why I believe that even with all the difficulties we have here in Brazil, I'm sure that we will be able to present a respectable World Cup to the watching world. A World Cup that will be remembered for a long time.
Back to the track, and the first of two races in Pinhais was won by Kaká Bueno. A stunning performance from yet another talented driver in a country where motorsport continues to prosper.
Maybe it's because of all the traffic in Brazil. The Brazilian drivers leave here well trained. Seriously though, I don't have a technical answer to give you as to why so many Brazilians have been so successful in motorsport on the international scene.
Of the 12 stadia that will host the 64 matches in 2014, only Curitiba's Arena da Baixada is currently staging fixtures in the Brazilian Championship. Home to Clube Atlético Paranaense, this impressive arena was first redeveloped in 1999 and is now set to see its capacity increased to over 40,000 in time for the FIFA World Cup. It's a venue fit for a team in the top division of Brazilian football, and that's exactly where Atlético have been playing their football since 1996, and with some success. Runners-up once, they were crowned champions for the first and only time in their history back in 2001. Unfortunately, things haven't been going so well on the pitch this season, but off it, Atlético continue to be seen as one of the most progressive and well-organised clubs in South America.
It's a club with a very particular structure. We have about 20,000 club members, all of whom pay their monthly subscriptions on time. Because of this, we're able to administer our finances effectively. We're very much an exception in that respect, because we're a club that has no debts.
I don't think that there's another club in Brazil that offers such great conditions to work in. And that's all down to the training ground that we have. It really is spectacular. It boasts 2 hotels on the complex, as well as 8 or 9 training pitches.
Among those benefiting from the impressive facilities are the players in the club's fabled academy system. Atlético runs teams in 3 age groups, and in recent years, a number of graduates have been sold for significant sums to leading clubs in Europe. Of the players currently in Atlético's first-team squad, as many as 13 have emerged from the youth system. and there is real hope that some of the current intake will follow in the footsteps of players like Kleberson, with one or two also going on to represent Brazil, maybe as early as 2014.
If the kids can maintain the level they're at today, we might well see one or two of our players appearing at the World Cup. We have 3 or 4 potential stars, and we just hope they don't get sidetracked. 3 years is a long time in football, and many other talented players emerge in Brazil almost every season. But I think we have at least 3 boys who could one day represent our country at a World Cup.
Of the 3 big clubs in Curitiba, Atletico can justifiably claim to be the best supported. Their main rivals, Curitiba, may have won more state titles and may be faring far better in the league this season, but the Hurricanes, as Atletico are known, continue to win the battle for the hearts and minds of the majority of the city's football fanatics.
Our fans are so important, and they certainly help us a lot. Their vocal support gives us a lot of inner strength when we're at home. Understandably, Atletico are feared by our opponents because of our stadium and our support. So the Arena da Baixada is hugely important. And it should be even better there once the structure has been redeveloped for the World Cup.
In terms of its construction, the Arena da Baixada is the most advanced of Brazil's 12 World Cup stadia, although Atletico will have to find another home next season, whilst work takes place to bring the venue up to the required standard. Still, everything points towards the stadium being completed in good time.
Yes, everything will be ready. The Board of Directors has elected a commission of advisors to manage the building project. The plan put forward by this commission is to finish the arena in 2012 and to open it in March 2013. Why March? Because the club's anniversary is in March, and it's also the anniversary of the city of Curitiba.
Whilst there'll be much to entertain the visitors to Curitiba during the 2014 FIFA World Cup, for those fans who are keen to explore beyond the city limits, the Great Brazil Express could well be the answer. Billed as a banquet for the senses, the 3-hour journey from Curitiba to Moretes on board Brazil's first and only luxury train takes in some of Paraná's most rugged and spectacular scenery.
About this railroad, it was built between 1880 and 1885, and the engineers responsible for the project were the brothers Rebouças, and they were the first black engineers in Brazil.
Occasionally a tourist route, the railroad is predominantly used to transport goods from across Brazil's southern states down to the port at Paranaguá. An estimated 9,000 workers were involved in its construction, although as many as 50% died during the 5 years it took to complete the project. More than a century later, in 2008, the Great Brazil Express took to the tracks, and the litorina, or carriage, carries a maximum of 22 passengers, many of whom are from overseas. Once aboard, the lucky few are transported back in time, with the decor and furniture very much in keeping with Brazil's colonial days.
The scenery is unbelievable. The train is a true vintage image for us. We've only seen in films before, and now we're actually living the experience.
It just looked fantastic. The experience that you can get, the scenery that you'll see from the train, it looked like a great trip, so we've taken it.
At the controls in the driver's cab is Rubens Bittencourt, who's been working on the railway since 1966. A keen football fan, he'd like to see one of the city's 4 World Cup fixtures, but understands that he may be busy at what could be a boom time for the Great Brazil Express.
There will be a lot of tourists during the World Cup. It's a big attraction. We expect to transport a lot of them. We hope a good number will ride on our train.
Many do so already, And for those who take one of the company's longer trains all the way to Paranagua, the 30 bridges, 14 tunnels and stunning scenery of the Cerro do Mar's Atlantic rainforest live long in the memory. Question is, will Brazil's participation in the 2014 tournament leave a lasting impression on the locals?
If we don't improve, we won't go very far at all. But we have time until the World Cup starts. A lot of stars and new people will come up, and we will continue to improve. But we will need a lot of them to come through.
After a pleasant 3-hour journey, the Great Brazil Express rolls into Moretes, the end of the line for the Litorina, and for this month's edition of the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine. Coming up next time, Belo Horizonte, the hustling, bustling state capital of Minas Gerais. We meet one of the many women working at the Mineirão, a semi-final venue in 2014. And we examine the crisis in club football in a city with 3 top-flight teams. Until then, goodbye.